Hey, how about your guy, Massage Watson? I mean, Deshaun Watson.
Massage.
How about your guy on
Bidding it booming.
Bidding it booming?
Bidding it booming.
What was it? Vibes with my vibe? Is that
Yeah.
what the quote said? Deshaun Watson going on social media and posting some highlight video of a private plane. His brand new. What kind of car was that? Like a Lamborghini? What do they call that? Like a Ferrari?
That's what it looked like, a Lamborghini.
Really nice, expensive car. Just traveling the country.
Went to a Clemson game.
Oh,
was flossing out at a Clemson game.
I mean,
they living the life.
Yeah, just living the life, man.
I mean, you wouldn't expect anything differently, would we?
I mean, would you be, and this is hard because you don't have a fetish like he does, but if all of this stuff came out, I don't know, man. Like, I would pretend that I robbed a bank and just disappear and keep as low of a profile as possible on social media and just say, listen, I got my $230 million guaranteed. It's going to last me forever. I'm going to keep it as long as I possibly can. I'm not really worried about sponsorships and all the other things that come along with it. Just going to get ready for the season, and that'll be that. I'm not going to flaunt me flying on a private plane, me going to a game and eating good and drinking booze on the flight there, and then brag about the expensive car I got. Meanwhile, you got other players in the league who've got to resort to opening up gambling accounts because they don't make enough money returning kicks anymore. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and flaunt all this stuff. Yet he just oblivious to it all, keeps on keeping on. That Deshaun Watson.
Well, when your mindset is that you've done nothing wrong, then you should do nothing differently. I think if you start doing things differently, if you start living differently, that's almost like an admission of guilt. Like, oh, let me be modest with this $250 million guaranteed or however much it is. Like, let me act like, being, just not out or not enjoying my life. Almost like I'm embarrassed to have what I have. Like, if you start acting that way, everybody gonna be looking at it like, man, that dude did that mess, man. He's guilty. He's feeling guilty. He's living guilty. Like, to live the way that he's living and to flaunt his money the way that he's flaunting it, if that's what you want to call it. I mean, I don't tend to call it flaunting if it's on his page. I mean, it's just him documenting with content what it is that he's doing and how he's doing it. And if you don't like him, don't look at his page. Like, you have the right to not visit his page. You have the right to visit his page. I happened to see the video on my Discovery. And when I went, I was like, what is this? Like, oh, that's Massage. Let me check out what he's doing. And then I watched the whole video. I was like, had his girlfriend with him and everything. Like, everything was like a flex.
It's all normal.
It was just normal.
Yeah.
And if I'm him and I'm maintaining my innocence and this is what I've been saying and this is what I'm feeling, then I'm going to keep doing what it is that I've been doing.
You know what I found myself doing when it comes to Deshaun Watson? So I think to myself, this is obviously a massive year coming up because it's year 2 of the deal. It's his first full season. Stefanski's talked about it. His offensive coordinator, Alex Van Pelt, has talked about it's a night and day difference between the last year and this year. And I'm going over like, okay, massive year. You've got Baltimore, who's got their franchise quarterback back. Everybody's on good terms. They've built around him. Joe Burrow and the Bengals are the real deal. Joe Burrow's a stud. He's going to be one of these guys that gets a big contract. And then I'm looking at Deshaun Watson, and I'm looking at the Cleveland Browns, and I'm like, man, this is a massive year. Kevin Stefanski could be on the hot seat. Deshaun Watson's got to really prove himself. And then
could be on the hot seat?
Yeah, well, he's on the hot seat if they don't make the playoffs, that's for sure. But you
don't think he's on the hot seat coming into this season?
I think he is, but I also wonder how much the organization.
We had that conversation yesterday too.
Did you?
Coaches on hot seats.
I missed that one. Yeah.
It's a good conversation.
I'll get to it after the show.
Oh, okay.
But I find myself in thinking about Deshaun Watson in terms of a normal player wanting to prove his worth that just got a new contract, instead of how I really should view it as a guy who's got $230 million guaranteed. He's getting every cent, and who really cares whether or not he plays well or not? That guy's getting every single penny of that contract. It completely changes how I view what success for Deshaun Watson is moving forward. Everybody else,
because he's already had his success,
and it's over. Like he got his guaranteed contract, fully guaranteed.
Yeah.
It's like, if there was anybody who should be flaunting or flexing or celebrating, like, hey man, I've made it, it's all good here, that's the guy. He's the only one. Like him and Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins never got anywhere near $230 million guaranteed that Deshaun Watson got. It changes the way I view how he looks at what this next year is going to be like, and what the year after that's going to be like, because the Browns have committed fully to him financially. He can have an awful season for the rest of the contract. He's getting every single penny of it. That's a crazy thought.
In football, not only is that a crazy thought, but it's a scary thought. Again, because if that becomes the trend where some way, somehow the top players start getting fully guaranteed contracts, then now the question becomes, what guarantees that they're going to care enough to do what they need to do? I mean, I can remember when Albert Haynesworth got that big ass contract when he came to DC.
Oh, geez.
And how that whole thing went down and how that unfolded. And once he got that big ass contract, he was looking at Washington like, I got y'all, man. Like, and you can get these. That's really all you can get. Then he was doing the worm in the middle of games, like he was doing the centipede. Like, I mean, he had to have been like the worst football player for the Washington at the time.
Jeez.
The Commanders now, but at the time formerly known as the Washington Redskins. He has to be the worst free agent acquisition to ever come there. And he got paid. And I think that's the biggest fear is once you pay that type of money to a football player, you don't know what their motivation is going to be. And my whole thing is the mentality of football players for the most part. I mean, some guys don't have like the real stone cold approaches. And from what I can gather now, these new school football players and these new school athletes, they just have a different way of how they see things, how they view things. So it's not as hardcore as it was, back in the day with how football players viewed their jobs. I mean, I would say that in a lot of ways, football players are not just football players anymore. They're definitely more into entertainment. They're more into style. They're more into
massages.
Well, I mean, guys have always got massages, just not with that many massage therapists that might not be massage therapists, but you want them to be a massage therapist anyway. And that's a whole nother conversation. I just think that football players are into TJ was saying when we were at Super Bowl this year, TJ was hitting its spot. He was knocking it out of the park. It's like you can't tell a football player from a rapper anymore or from a performer. Like you seeing dudes walk around, it's like, is he a performer or is he a player?
Well, I can tell the difference between Kirk Cousins and 50 Cent.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like there are some.
That was your comparison.
There are some.
That was the comparison you was going to throw out there.
There are some exceptions.
I was in Mastro's not too long ago, and Logic was in there. Would not like you couldn't pick Logic out of a lineup.
Who the hell's Logic?
Exactly. He's big time. You wouldn't be able to pick him out of a lineup. Like he's in there. Bodyguards sitting at in the bar area waiting on him. You wouldn't even know.
Were they playing a piano in there when you went?
Well, they weren't playing the piano, but there was a young lady who was singing her ass off.
Oh yeah.
We were sitting right next to it.
Did you get that seafood tower with all the dry ice when it comes out?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Pretzels, the pretzel bread.
Pretzel bread.
It's fantastic.
Did you know that they have a seasonal blueberry butter cake?
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
What time of season's that?
Last time I was there, they had it.
Wow.
It's not as good as the OG, though. The OG is the OG.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
my stomach is burning now.
Like, you and I have never been there. We're just talking hypothetically because we wear sweatpants.
That's you saying that. I just said the point of the story was I was in there with the dude and wouldn't have been able to pick him out. You could be in there. You could be in a place with pro football players and not be able to pick them out. So I just think that the culture is just very different. Like that flossy culture and stuff like that is just very different. So I'm not going to resign to the fact that you're going to have players that don't play their hearts out anymore. I just think that guys' way of doing things is just very different anymore. And I don't think it's for what it's worth, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's not a good thing. It's just what it is. It's just where it is. Like just the way college sports is evolving, the way high school football players approach what that feels like getting to college. It's just all different now. And it's because the exposure is different.
You mentioned Albert Hainsworth. So he signed in Washington, he signed a 7-year, $100 million deal. I think it was $41 million guaranteed. And that was the same guy that Mike Shanahan basically fat-shamed and made him redo the conditioning drills and wouldn't let him participate in practice. You remember that there was coverage.
He did not care, bro.
There was coverage. They would do live shots of, now we go live to Washington to see the conditioning drills and see the progress that Albert Hainsworth has made. and they would go through this, like they made a spectacle of it. Like they clowned him and fat-shamed him just to try and get him ready for the season. And if you did that nowadays, Washington would have been buried. Oh, you're gonna make an example of a player like this? We've got to send ESPN cameras out there to go to Washington to see Albert Hainsworth go through conditioning drills. Like, this is what we're doing to people. Somebody would have been outraged and offended by it. And back in 2009 or whenever it was that was the norm. Like, we got to get this guy in shape, and he's got a bad reputation, so this is the way it works.